Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to start by commending the Congressman from Nebraska. Having invested across borders in many different countries around the world, I believe that good-paying American jobs comes mostly from competitiveness. And in order for our companies to be competitive and produce good-paying American jobs, we need competitive energy prices. And therefore, I support this bill and think that it can produce lots of great jobs in America. I, for one, drive an automobile made by Americans in America. Yesterday, I voted no on the proposal to train and arm Syrian rebels. I did so because I'm convinced that we and our allies need to come together and unite behind a much broader and very long-term plan with the goal of ending militant Islamism across the globe once and for all. In my opinion, anything less, such as reacting crisis by crisis, like playing whack-a-mole, is doomed to failure. To begin, we must accept the realities of the challenges we face and the generational nature of the threat. We can easily agree that ISIS today is the most visible and immediate threat of militant Islamic extremism. It is clear and present danger to the Middle East region and, yes, beyond. We can all agree ISIS must be eliminated. But moving forward, it would be a mistake, and I think a missed opportunity, to focus solely on ISIS. ISIS is only one part of a widespread, metastasizing cancer of hatred, intolerance, and violence. We're facing a cancer of militant Islamism with cells under various names in dozens of countries. In planning the elimination of ISIS, we, with a coalition of the willing, must do so recognizing it as part of an overall global disease. Success requires a broad, diverse, and long-standing international coalition committed to defeating the cancer of militant Islamism once and for all. Now America is uniquely qualified to provide the leadership, including the air power and mission command structure. But this time, the funding, military equipment, and ground forces must be provided by others. Too many times in the past, the United States has borne an extremely disproportionate part of these burdens. This time it must be understood that U.S. forces are not going to be the combat boots on the ground, nor will the American taxpayer be paying the bill. It's time our allies, especially the Arab and Muslim nations, those most significantly and most immediately threatened, to step up. They need to provide the resources, especially the ground forces, that are needed in this conflict. And coalition plans and action plans going forward must be guided by an overarching strategic vision of a world someday, somehow, free of militant Islamism. That must be our cause. Success will begin but not end with the containment, isolation, and over time elimination of ISIS and other militant cells, wherever and whenever they arise. One by one, Islamic militant organizations must be eradicated around the world. They must be eliminated from the Middle East, from the Near East, Sub-Saharan and North Africa, and South Asia. Any additional cancer cells or seeds of cancer in Europe, the U.S. or elsewhere must also be eliminated. The coalition must also follow the money and take actions to halt all financing for militant jihadists from banks, oil revenues, and states sponsoring terrorism. The coalition must be united long-term behind a goal of a world where today's oppression, intolerance, violence, brainwashing, and genocide give way to liberty, religious and ethnic tolerance, and opportunity for all. regardless of one's sex, faith, or ethnicity. The coalition must also address the root causes of the cancer, something we've been avoiding up until now, something that presents an additional challenge of monumental proportions. This means correcting conditions that become recruitment tools for jihadist organizations. Impoverished areas, especially those with disadvantaged Muslim populations, must evolve to where they can provide information, education, skills training, and economic opportunities for their young people. To counter environmental conditions that are so ripe for radicalization by radical jihadists. These challenges are huge, even generational. Handouts are not the answer, in my view. The coalition must address these issues with the nations involved and with moderate Muslim leaders, providing assistance wherever possible. Ultimately, the battle for the hearts and minds must be won by voices of moderation and opportunity, in rejection of extremist voices who offer only hatred and bloodshed. Schools and hospitals, and yes, even mosques, must condemn and combat for violence and militant jihad. Moderate Muslim leaders must be encouraged to speak out against extremism. This does require courage, and as moderate Muslims emerge, the coalition must stand ready to defend and support them against those who would try to silence their voices. Over time, any and all teachings of hatred and intolerance must be brought to an end. As with cancer in our bodies, the worst thing to do is to deny it, ignore it, minimize it, or hope that it will just go away on its own, or fail to call it by its proper name. And when a cancer metastasizes, we must accept that we cannot cut it out in one location. For decades, we've been fighting the cancer of militant Islamism sort of like playing whack-a-mole. Whenever an Islamic threat pops up of radical nature, be it in the Near East or in the Middle East, New York, London, Nigeria, Sudan, Southeast Asia, or elsewhere, be it an organized effort or even a lone wolf, we react to it and try to smash it away, only to see another whack-a-mole pop up soon after in a different location. After decades of rise in Islamism, the Middle and Near East regions have seen leadership voids filled by Islamic radicals. As despots are threatened or driven out by revolutions or internal civil wars, the resulting voids are being filled by others, many of whom are bad players. Often the new leaders are worse than those they replace. Transforming nations from totalitarian rule to a sustainable form of representative governance poses huge challenges, as we have seen in recent years. This challenge will not end with the elimination of ISIS. Am I overstating my concerns? I don't think so. I'm convinced that America must lead the civilized world in accepting the nature and breadth and complexity of global militant Islamism and call it by its name, and lead a coalition resolved to stay the course and end this cancer once and for all. We must stop kicking this cancer down the road to jeopardize future generations. It is neither naive nor idealistic to suggest that the world must unite behind the long-term goal of ending radical global militant Islamism, because the alternative is simply not acceptable. Madam, I yield back.